After a wonderful introduction of the theme of these next 2 days, it's time for some reflection. I'm going to invite Egge van der Poel to the stage. He is also a doctor, but a different type of doctor. A long time before this moment, I came across a LinkedIn post of the data doctor, and that was you. When we had some contact briefly before this stage, you told me that there are a lot of decisions you have to make as a patient, and it is your mission to make sure that all the relevant data that is necessary to make the best decision is present and can be used to make a good decision. And when I asked you why you joined Inspire to Live as a member of our supervisory board, you said, well, I believe that Inspire to Live is a very bold organization that dares to do basically anything as long as it's for the improvement of patient lives. And yeah, you wrote a book with a similar title. Without compromise, you want to reorganize healthcare. So I think it's actually very sensible that you joined our supervisory board. I'm very curious to hear your reflections.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very honored to be here. It's not your typical conference. My first time being here. Not many conferences where I've been hugging people I don't know, but I like it. So thank you. I joined the supervisory board of Inspire to Live actually quite recently. So when Peter and Ilona asked me to say something here, I was of course flabbergasted. And when I asked them, what should I talk about? They said, whatever you want. That's also not typical about a conference. And actually hearing you talk, we spoke and we hugged already before, but it reminded me of when I was at the Dutch conference for palliative care a few weeks ago. And I was invited there by a Dutch doctor, Christian Rodius, who wrote an article about the palliative paradox, which is something he discovered working in palliative care. And he said the paradox is in the fact that when you're letting go of life, one of the main solutions is to embrace everybody around you. So the connection in letting go is some kind of a paradox. And I think this mindset is something that can help us also in silent despair. So I was given the chance to talk about whatever I wanted. So I would like to share some personal reflections about my life and insights, and also some stories outside of my personal life and experience. What you see here is a picture where my wife Saskia, with the red shirt, and myself, just in the front on the left, are visiting a maternity ward. It's left out of the slide in this case, but it's a maternity ward in a little village in the northern part of Zambia in Africa. The village is called Kashikishi. And we visited in 2006, and it was a really profound experience for me. I was raised by a doctor and a teacher. And actually, I was always interested in making society better in all kinds of ways. I followed my curiosity into physics and philosophy. And now I've been spending 13 years of my life in healthcare. But before that, we visited this maternity ward. And 23 years before we visited this maternity ward, I was one of the babies in the same room. I was born there, spent a few years of my life there. And coming back there was a profound experience, seeing a different way of life than what I've seen here in the Netherlands. And it changed the way I look at the world. It changed the way I look at equity, and really shaped the way I work and live. 4 years after I visited this maternity ward in Zambia, I was working on this experiment, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. I was doing a PhD there, looking for the Higgs particle. I can spend hours talking about the Higgs particle, but this is not the right audience, I think. But it's a really important particle, and we discovered it. And what we actually did was kind of stupid in the sense that we wanted to find new particles, new mass. And Einstein told us E equals mc squared. So if you want to find an m, you need to create E, which is the energy part. So the way you create energy in physics is just to smash things. So this is how we did it. We had a large accelerator, and then we smashed protons. And from, let's say, the debris of the collision, followed all kinds of really impressive analytics, from which we could deduce whether or not the Higgs particle exists. So this was my work. I studied data. I did a lot of data analytics, algorithms, and from that we could discover the Higgs particle exists. And afterwards, I started working in healthcare. And I thought, okay, what can I learn from working at CERN, working with big data? What can I bring to healthcare? And this is what I thought about. To make use of big data, we need to start big dating, which means working together, sharing data towards a common goal. But joining, let's say, the healthcare field, started working in the hospitals and other healthcare organizations. First, I was idealistic. I thought, okay, in healthcare, the common goal is set. Nobody needs to discuss about that. Well, how wrong was I? The past 13 years, I've been looking for formulating this common goal together, because that's needed to actually start working together and share data. And when I was asked to join the supervisory board of Inspire to Live, finally, I saw the right way of working. Finally, I saw the really big dating way of working. Working together, sharing data, not only data, but insights, information, knowledge, and this common goal, this very, very forward-driving common goal. So this, I'm really thankful to be part of Inspire to Live now, because finally I see an organization that is doing this outside of physics. I want to share two stories from physics, just as a kind of hopefully inspirational way of looking at the world. This is the first story. This is a story from 1964, so a long time ago. These are two men, Robert Woodrow Wilson and Arno Penzias, looking at an apparatus. This is the horn antenna. What they tried to do here, this was in Bell Labs, New Jersey, on the east coast of the US. What they tried to do here was detect signals, radio signals, coming back from the atmosphere. What they did, they had an echo balloon in the atmosphere. They sent radio signals there, and they tried to detect the new signals, or the radiating signals back. But they had a problem. They were not detecting signals. They were only detecting noise. So what did they do? They unplugged all the cables, they changed all the cables, they restarted the system. They actually went into the horn antenna with some soap to scrub off all the bird poo. But wherever they looked, whenever they looked, they only saw noise. What they didn't know was that actually an hour away from them, at Princeton University, there were people looking for this noise. This is 1964. There were people writing an article about the Big Bang Theory. And these people wrote down, if the Big Bang ever occurred, there should be some remnant signal out there, always detectable, very faint. And if you would measure it, you would probably think it's noise. At some point, they were introduced to each other. Rumor has it it was at the drinks at a borrel. So borrels are very important. But they were introduced, these two groups, the Princeton and the Bell Labs researchers. And 14 years after these people were scraping off bird poo, they won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Yeah. So the key message here is, what's noise to you can be signal to another. So keep sharing also your struggles and your noise, because it might be the right ingredient for someone else to make a signal out of it. Another story is also from the 60s. I'm a nostalgic person. But this is 1969. Does anybody know what this is supposed to depict? The most heard explanation is there were people on the moon. And this is Neil Armstrong on the moon. And it's a fantastic story, right? The Apollo mission. Does anybody know which Apollo landed on the moon? 11, right? 11. So it wasn't the first, it wasn't the second, it wasn't the third, it was 11. Does anybody know what happened to the first Apollo 1? They exploded on Earth. the astronauts were killed on Earth. It was a test and they died. But they had the perseverance as a collective effort to go forward. While Neil Armstrong put a boot on the moon, there was a control room filled in Houston with clever people monitoring every step of the way. So in this control room, the question is, what would you guess was the average age in this control room in Houston during the Apollo 11 mission? The average age of the people in this control room. What do you think? 50, 34, 35? 27. The average age, 27. There's a fantastic BBC podcast, which I really would advise to listen, 13 Minutes to the Moon. Episode 2 of season 1 is called Kids in Control. You learn a lot about how they hire the people and so on and so forth. But one of the messages in this podcast series is these people were too young to know it was impossible. That's why they did it. And I don't discriminate against elderly people, but it's a message for me that in every organization, in every network, there are people that are saying this can't be done. You also hear this in your own head. It can't be done. It's not possible. It's technically not feasible. It's not possible due to law. It's not typical. Any kind of excuse is thought of, but it can't be done. And what the lesson from this moonshot is, anything can be done. If you get rid of all the no-sayers in your head and around you. And that's what also I find very inspiring about Inspire to Live. You are doing it. You're not only saying it's hard, it requires collective effort. You're doing the collective effort. So thank you for that. And I would like to finish with the last story from this guy, or actually it's a book tip. This is Mitchell Resnick. And I know from Inspire to Live you have the 4 P's. He has 4 different P's. He wrote a book called Lifelong Kindergarten, which is a fantastic book. And why did he write the book? Because he sees that in kindergarten, we start putting in structure. So we have a society filled with structure. And what we're doing in kindergarten is applying the structure. We're giving tests and everything and regulation. And so we're really beating the kid out of the kindergarten. And he says we need to do the other way around. We need to go from all the ways of working in kindergarten. We need to bring that to normal life. And he says we can use 4 P's: the projects, the passion, the peers, and the play. So if you have the projects that come out of passion and you start playing with it with your peers, that's how you create what he calls the creative learning spiral. And he says, start by imagining, start by building it, play with it, reflect on it with your peers, and so on and so forth. And that's the real way of working that is necessary to go from it's hard, it's impossible, to making the impossible actually work. Thank you so much for your attention.
Any questions to our data
I think we're
doctor?
a bit blown away, actually.
Yeah.
I think we kind of need a moment to process because there was a lot in there.
All right, you know where to find him during the break.
But I think that's the whole point of the break, which will be very difficult to bring you back, but you will need to come back, is to go and meet and talk to everybody who's been speaking. But I think what came out for me anyway was common goal. I've been working with a pharma company recently and I said, be honest, how much is the patient first, really? And somebody was brave enough to say, only on the PowerPoint. That's got to be a mission. And so I think common goal, love it. Sharing data, being a patient advocate and realizing there's so much research, we're making so many breakthroughs. How are we not sharing the data and the research more widely? And the last one, working together. I think if Inspired to Live has one thing that you all do very, very well, I think I'm we now, aren't I? Is this working together and leaving the egos at the door. So thank you. I thought that was absolutely inspirational. Thank you.